The humble afternoon tea, popular in Britain for over 100 years. But to understand why it's so popular, we have to delve back right into the history of this fabulous creation. Who created it? Where did it come from? What types are there? So many questions people have to ask, so let's delve into it and find out today of what has become one of the most quintessential parts of British social culture. Hi, thanks for joining me. It's great to have you with me. So what do I know about afternoon tea? Well, I spent a period of time at a famous hotel's tea room as the manager. Through the years, I've served many in my career as food and beverage management in hotels. I've always had a fond affection for the occasion and been lucky enough to sample many through the years. As a Londoner, I've been lucky enough to try some of the best afternoon teas the city had to offer in the past. Trying some great offerings around the country in so many different styles of their presentation, formal and relaxed. An afternoon tea today has become something many do to celebrate an occasion. I know that in my experience, people have come to have them to celebrate birthdays, weddings, anniversaries and such events. It's a good excuse to elevate, to add a feel of luxury and something special. People can still feel a little out of place coming into a hotel, for example, for an afternoon tea. Like it's something for the wealthy or the celebrities, which really isn't the case anymore. An afternoon tea is something to be afforded by all kinds of people in all walks of life. But why is it so popular? Where did it come from? I'm going to take you on a journey now to show you the where, the myths, the mysteries, the hearsay and the facts, and how they align to explain a comprehensive guide to an afternoon tea. An era of innovation and creation, of growing social practices for both the wealthy and the poor. A reign as monarch lasting 63 years, 216 days. Alexandrina Victoria was born on the 24th of May 1819 and died on the 22nd of January 1901. Queen Victoria, as we grew to know her, reigned as the Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland from the 20th of June 1837 until her death in 1901. Her reign was longer than any of her predecessors, making her one of the most recognisable names throughout history. Queen Victoria. A period of time we know today as the Victorian era. Such a successful and beloved monarch to many, thus ensuring the longevity of the previously troubled royal family. They had somewhat lost respect from the wider population and dominion. But with her vision of a royal family, rather than the image of just a ruling monarch class, she created the version of the royals we see today. This helped cement their reputation once again. They became the people's family. This leads us to how a concept was created by chance and had the ability to become mainstream. This due to the social class systems of the day. The 7th Duchess of Bedford, Anna Maria Russell, is responsible for the creation of the afternoon tea. It was sometime around the year 1840. With an increase in urbanisation of large cities and the rise in industrialisation, also the widespread use of gas lighting, with it now being brought into the home setting. This ultimately meant that the dinner meal was becoming something far later into the evening than it had previously been. Rural farming villages maintained an early working start. They finished at sundown. The wealthier classes, not bound by such social practices and practicalities, proceeded to have their dinner as late as 9 p.m. So what's the connection between Queen Victoria and the afternoon tea? Well, here it is. The Duchess of Bedford, who was one of Queen Victoria's ladies-in-waiting, grew frustrated with this situation. Such a delay from dinner was a frustration to her. She described a sinking feeling at about 5 p.m. She became despondent at the seemingly large void between lunch and dinner. Summoning the staff, she requested that some tea, bread and butter with cake be brought to her room in the late afternoon. This is where the original concept was ultimately created. The upper classes of Britain would soon adopt this new fashion and trend, as they needed little excuse or convincing to adopt the ritual. An upper class generation that were renowned for their excesses in food and the love of socialisation. It continued that her friends were also formally invited to join her in her rooms at Woburn Abbey, her residence. The practice became so popular that the Duchess continued the concept on her return to London, where it rapidly expanded in its popularity, regularly inviting her friends, asking them to join her for tea and cake. Other socialites quickly picked up on the idea and the practice became respectable enough to move it into the drawing room. It then became fashionable within high society and it was made a firm fixture for the wealthy. Tea with a helping of cake and sandwiches in the middle of the afternoon became a staple of British culture. The afternoon tea that we all know and love today. Henry James, one of the most prolific writers of the 19th century, and I love this, he also wrote, "There are few hours in life more agreeable than the hour dedicated to the ceremony known as afternoon tea." High tea is not a fancy version of an afternoon tea, as many people assume. Delectable scones, tea sandwiches, cakes are the hallmark of an afternoon tea, which is served in the mid-afternoon. A high tea, however, includes much more substantive fare, such as meat, fish, egg dishes, as well as breads, desserts, and that is offered in the early evening. Think of it as a light supper served with tea. Afternoon tea, also known as low tea, because it is more often served at a low table, like a coffee table or such. And it was served in the sitting room on average, at least in its initial conception. High tea, however, gets its name from its tendency to be served at a high table, like a dining table or a high counter, also at the end of a workday. Whether you choose to serve a more luxurious tea or plan a heartier meal, both are lovely ways to savour tea time and entertain guests. So join me now as we hop off my narrowboat and do a little bit of location. See you in a minute. There are many ideas about tea etiquette and when and how tea was made popular in England. Charles II grew up in exile at The Hague and thus exposed to the custom of drinking tea. He married Catherine of Braganza, who was Portuguese and who greatly enjoyed drinking tea. Catherine had grown up drinking tea in her homeland of Portugal, being the preferred beverage of the time. It is said that when she arrived in England to marry Charles II in 1662, she brought with her a casket of tea. She became known as England's first tea-drinking queen. While in England, she invited her friends into her bedroom chamber to share with her on many occasions. In the 18th century, it was custom for the high-born ladies to receive callers with their morning tea while still lounging in bed. Queen Anne drank tea so regularly that she substituted a large bell-shaped silver teapot for tiny Chinese teapots. The earliest tea service dates from her reign. Tea was first advertised in a London journal in 1660 by Thomas Garway, the owner of a London coffee house, and the first to sell and brew tea on the premises. By 1700, tea was also being sold by grocers and tea shops in London. By the 1720s, black tea overtook green tea in popularity as its price dropped. Coffee houses were popular in the 18th century. Women were forbidden to enter them. In 1675, members of the government persuaded Charles II to suppress them as centres of sedition. The men were so outraged that the king was forced to cancel the proclamation. Coffee houses were also called penny universities in reference to the conversation they bred and the penny admittance fee. To even it out a little bit, during the 18th century, tea gardens became popular. The whole idea of the garden was for ladies and gentlemen to take their tea together outdoors, surrounded by entertainers and things to see. They attracted everybody, including composers Mozart and Handel. Tea gardens made tea all the more fashionable to drink. Plus, there were important places for men and women to meet freely, which wasn't the thing at the time. Whilst the custom of drinking tea dates back to the 3rd millennium in China, it was popularised in England during those 1660s. While tea became a fashionable event and is credited to Catherine, the actual taking of tea in the afternoon developed into a new social event sometime in the late 1830s to 1840s. Jane Austen hints of afternoon tea as early as 1804 in an unfinished novel. This pause for tea became a fashionable social event. During the 1800s, upper class society and women would change into long gowns, gloves and hats for their afternoon tea, which was usually served, as we say, between 4 or 5 o'clock. What is the difference between a traditional and a royal afternoon tea? Well, quite simply, a royal includes a glass of champagne, a creation of more modern society to add a touch of class to proceedings. In 1762, John Montagu, the 4th Earl of Sandwich, was said to have created this namesake snack. He didn't really invent the sandwich, but he may well have made it popular. It is said that in approximately 1762, he asked for some meat to be served between 2 slices of bread to avoid interrupting a gambling game. This story may have been rumour or adverse propaganda that was circulated by his rivals, but certainly and by no means is it fact. One of the most enduring arguments for afternoon tea itself has always been, do you put the cream or the jam on the scone first? After much research, I conclude that it was something created to add an air of mystery and debate between the rivalry of Devon and Cornwall. The answer to this conundrum? Who knows? But think of it as this. Think of it as a baking professional. A cream with its density, as clotted cream does have, should become a base layer. Jam would therefore be presumed a lighter topping or a sauce addition. With that, I will leave it up to you to make up your own minds. Proper etiquette for a tea party, yes, it is something that has existed and in some places is still followed to this very day. Just like the royalty and upper classes did at the original tea parties, it's important to use the proper etiquette when attending a formal version. Here are just a few party etiquette tips to remember. When sitting down, put your purse on your lap or against the back of the chair. Unfold the napkin and make sure to place it on your lap. If you must leave the table temporarily, place the napkin on the chair. Never blot or wipe your lipstick with a linen or cloth napkin because lipstick stains rarely come out in the wash, and obviously I am an expert on that. Never ever use your napkin as a handkerchief, no blowing your nose. Please excuse yourself from the table and go to the ladies' room. The hostess will signal the end of the tea party and the afternoon tea itself by picking up her napkin. Everyone else will then pick up their napkin loosely by the centre and place it to the left of their plate. Sugar is placed in the teacup first, then thinly sliced lemon. If you'd like to add milk to your tea, do it after the milk is poured. At one time, it was tradition to pour the milk into the cup before the tea. This was done to prevent the glaze on the delicate teacups from cracking. We don't have that problem today. So add the milk after the tea so that you can judge how much to use based on the colour change. Never use milk and lemon together, unless you're me who drinks green tea with lemon and puts milk and sugar in it because I can't get away from normal tea drinking. Hold the handle of the teacup using your thumb and your first 1 or 2 fingers. There is no need to stick out your pinky. This is an exaggeration of how people sometimes tilt their pinky upwards to balance the cup. Do not loop your fingers through the teacup handle or cradle the sides or the bottom of the cup with your hands. A guest should look into the teacup when drinking, never over it. When stirring your tea, be careful not to clink your spoon against the cup. Instead, gently swish the spoon back and forth without touching the sides of the cup. When stirring though, remove the spoon and place it on a saucer behind the teacup and to the right hand side of the handle. Of course, never take a drink of your tea without removing the spoon first, and please never ever sip from the spoon itself. It does happen, doesn't it, when you think about it. Take small quiet sips of your tea. Do not blow, even if the tea is too hot. Let it cool. When you are not drinking the tea, place the cup on the saucer. If seated at a table, then never pick up the saucer. If standing, you may lift the saucer with the cup. It is fine to eat most of the foods with your fingers, taking small bites. However, use a fork when trying to eat the messy foods, especially the cakes. Most places will have a small fork, usually 3-pronged. It's a cake fork. Split the scone with a knife. Since the knife is now used, either place it on your knife rest or lay it gently to the side of the plate. Jam or curds is usually placed on the scone and then to the top with a dollop of clotted cream. Again, who knows with that one. Simply spoon a small amount of jam or curds onto your plate, as well as some of the clotted cream. Spread the jam, the curds and clotted cream onto your scone, but never use the serving spoon for this task. Be sure to take small bites, since attending a tea party is a social occasion and you will want to participate in the conversation. This without always having a full mouth and to chew and swallow completely before taking a drink, since it's hot and is not meant to wash down the food. So there we have it. Who knows? There is such a simple delight would involve such a dramatically thought out set of rules. So there we have it, a comprehensive guide to an afternoon tea. I will also down the line delve into the history of tea itself and many other Edwardian and Victorian creations, and also look into the lives of the people that used to make all of these things happen. So it'd be great if you could join me, like and subscribe, and many more things like this will start to appear. Also, there is a link in my description and at the end of this video for my newly set up Patreon, which would help me to go a long way in getting out there and really finding some good source material to get some of these brilliant documentaries in hand. So thank you very much. I hope to see you soon. That's me from Narrowboat in Manchester. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.